I don't know if it might help to hop out and come back in again, Jane.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, you're in.
I'm in. Sorry, am I keeping everybody waiting?
No, not at all. No.
Oh, right. So how do I? Sorry.
Video, if you're on a laptop, is usually on the left bottom hand corner.
I've got my little pal here helping me, Susie.
Aha, that's good.
It's my little pal. Oh, right. Yes, I'm in. Oh, Shelley's there. Well, that's her cupboard.
Been replaced by a coat hanger.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry I was late. Oh.
No, not at all.
We've been delivering prescriptions, Susie.
Oh, have you?
We did it last lockdown. Well, no, the first lockdown from, I think we did April, May, June until the end of July. Once, sometimes twice a week. But today it was a double round and we've been out. Hi, Jill.
Hiya. Hi.
From 10:30 till 5. And we delivered 70 prescriptions. And I'm absolutely...
That's going to...
Well, we are so flooded. We've never flooded here. Oh, we're flooded. That was my friend Beryl on the phone saying that her son's bungalow is just gone. We've lost everything. No. We just don't have it. The rain is unbelievable here. Yeah. It's terrible.
Oh, shall
we just shut those dogs up and
Oh. So how are you, Susie?
I'm good, thank you. Yes.
Have you started your next course?
Yes, I've done the one-to-ones for a couple of people, and a few more to go. Yeah.
Right. It must be quite yeah, especially if you're running two at the same time, must be quite difficult to keep yeah.
Well, actually that'll be 3.
Wow. What, 3 courses at once?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That takes some doing.
It's going along okay. It's good. Yeah.
Oh, good.
And thank you, Shelley, for recommending Liz.
Oh, she came. She joined.
Yes.
Oh, good. I spoke to her on Sunday. She said, "Oh, I had 2 glasses of wine. I can't do anything." I said, "Well, get on it. It starts on next week." Oh, right. Oh, you can sort her out. Good. She's the person that turned up at my house for 10.5 weeks.
Oh, right. Oh, you do know each other very well.
Oh, so it's that Liz.
But she's in Germany and she's on lockdown and she couldn't go home for Christmas. She's just been stuck in a not particularly nice flat. And the Germans are not sociable people, and basically she's very lonely because she speaks the language reasonably well now, but she works for CNA and they're just a nightmare to work for, and anyway. So she'll be, I just said, look, just do it for yourself, enjoy it, it's great, we're really enjoying it. So she's done it good.
Really enjoying being nagged.
Yeah, well, she needs it. I told her. Here's Teresa. Hi, T.
Hello.
Hi.
Just myself.
Hi, Teresa.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit late.
That's fine. I think we're all a couple of minutes late, really.
How are you? Are you more rested today, Susan, than you were last week?
Yes. How is your family member?
Oh, she's still in hospital. She was found on the kitchen floor in her nightwear in mid-morning, so we don't know how long she'd been there. Anyway, apparently she's on oral antibiotics for a chest infection, and they're doing sort of daily blood tests to check her fluids. So they'll probably sort of let her out in a few days' time, but whenever we know what's happening, we're gonna have to get carers organised and sort of lots of arrangements made. You know what it's like, because she's in her 80s and she's confused is the nice way to put it, isn't it?
Was John's cousin?
Yes. Yeah. Margaret. Yeah. So there we go. The joys of getting old.
How did you get on this morning?
I got there at the right time and she said, "Oh, is it Jennifer?" And I said, "No, it's Teresa." And she said, oh, who are you seeing? And she said, "Your appointment's next Wednesday."
Oh, no.
Like you say, Teresa, the joys of getting old.
I know. Susie, you have a big job on with me.
I was just thinking, we need to talk about the essential fats.
Yes, we do. Anyway, I'll get there in the end. Yeah. So yeah. Other than that, all's fine. Yeah, it's very wet, and I did my half-hour walk and back, and by the time I got back, I was completely soaked. But anyway.
Really bad. It's really awful today.
Yeah,
it is. Yes, it's very persistent. And how has everyone got on this week?
Some days I was really good and managed to get enough water down me, and other days I didn't. I bought some spelt flour and made a Love's Farm recipe for basically what's Irish, they call it soda bread, we call it wheaten bread. And I thought at the time, it seems a wee bit dry, and it was dry. I mean, I did manage to eat it all over the course of whatever length of time. But I think I might just experiment and maybe just use it instead of the wheat that's in my normal recipe. But how else did I get on? I suppose I'm not too bad. I have lost a few pounds, so that's good.
Wow.
Right.
It's a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I got, Susie made me this lemon cake, a really naughty cake, and
Did she?
yeah, it was really nice of her, but I wish she hadn't really. But anyway, I have eaten quite a bit of it, really.
Only I'd have eaten the whole thing by now, Shelley. Not the whole 24 hours.
Well, once it's gone, it's gone. That's it.
Yeah.
So no, I've been reasonably good, and I had a glass of champagne yesterday, but I'm still not having. I could have. It's only because you brought it round. I wouldn't have bothered otherwise.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's nice. A treat.
Yeah, it was nice.
If you can't have a glass of champagne on your birthday, when can you?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Was it a nice day?
Actually, it was lovely because we had a 2-hour Zoom.
The three of us.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
And then I had lots of phone calls. I think people made an effort to be in touch because it was a weird time.
Yeah.
Got lots of flowers, thank you very much. And it was fine. I mean, I never really get hung up about birthdays anyway, so I'm quite happy to hide behind this one, I'll tell you.
Well, when I'm 50, I'm going to have a party, Shelley.
Oh yeah.
Susie, you shouldn't be laughing.
I kept very quiet about mine.
So
yeah, and I've ordered, like you, Teresa, I got some spelt bread, I've got millet porridge, I've got all sorts of things in now. I've stocked up my cupboard with good stuff. I just haven't done anything with it yet, but I will get on with it. I've got the stuff in to do things now.
Yeah. No, I think we're all trying to fit it in with our lives without.
Yes.
I mean, I've tried different regimes and diets all my adult life, and my adolescence as well. And the thing is, you've got to find something or little changes that you're going to sustain, rather than think, oh well, I've done it for a month and then suddenly forget. A bit like, I used to take carnivore tablets and I used to take calcium. Probably wasn't the best thing for me. Now I know what you've told me, Susie, but you need to do something that's like brushing your teeth, that becomes second nature, don't you?
Yes, you're right. And changing what you eat is actually a journey of many months, in my experience. It's not an overnight affair at all. I mean, I know people do sometimes encounter fairly drastic circumstances that makes them sit up and go, right, I'm going to do things really differently. But it's okay usually to do it gradually and make something a habit, and then make something else a habit.
Yeah, and you see, as I discovered over Christmas, you know, with not doing this for a couple of weeks, it's too easy to fall back into old habits. I mean, I didn't drop all my good new habits, but I could see, you know, by the end of that 2-week sort of period off, I was slipping a bit. You do need to kind of keep it going for a good number of weeks to get it ingrained, I think.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they do say, I forget how long they say it takes to change a habit. At least 21 days for each thing, I think.
Yeah, I think it is 21. And that doesn't sound long, does it?
It's not long at all. And I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's quite optimistic, really.
Yeah. Well, I've been making conscious effort to eat less wheat. Although I did have a sandwich for lunch because we were in a hurry, and in between deliveries, and I had a fish finger sandwich, which.
Does anybody else find Jane very quiet?
You are quite quiet.
Am I? Oh, maybe I'm not in front of the microphone. I'm on John's laptop.
Teresa, you're very loud to me. You're fine. I can hear you perfectly.
Oh, right. Do you want me to whisper a bit more?
No.
You sound a little bit underwater, actually, Jane.
Oh, I wonder.
You do, actually. You do.
This might be this light that I've got on next to me. I don't know. Or it could be our.
That's better.
That's better.
What have you just done?
Oh, right. I'll keep my head this way then.
Oh, right. I thought you'd switch something else off.
No, I don't know what I've done. Never mind.
You sound to be back again. Yeah.
Good.
Well, this week there's a couple of things. One is to kind of finish off last week, because I'm going to talk a little bit about cholesterol first, because it's a sort of hard, waxy fat. So it sort of fits in with last week as a continuation. And then I'm going to have a look at gut flora. Which, of course, are quite a buzzword, really, aren't they? But, yeah. So I'll grab the PowerPoint and hope it comes straight through this time.
Yay! Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, it has.
That's great. So, I'll crack straight on with the next one. So we'll just have a look at the NHS targets for cholesterol. So they reckon that you shouldn't have a cholesterol of more than 5, and that your good cholesterol should be at 1 or above, and your LDL should be at no more than 3 or below. And then you've got non-HDL, which should be 4 or below, and your triglycerides at 2.3 or below. And I guess these levels are set by the drug companies. So I think it was in the 1950s, there was a researcher whose name has dropped out of my mind at the minute, but he came up with the hypothesis that high cholesterol caused heart disease. And even though I think a minority of studies showed that his hypothesis may have some, what's the word, kudos or weight to it. About 90% of them didn't. But he was able somehow, is obviously another one of these researchers that was a very good salesman, managed to convince drug companies that they needed to develop something that would, target lowering cholesterol. And we've been on that bandwagon ever since they managed to evolve them. So we've already had a look at this a little bit. Cholesterol is a hard waxy fat, and you do need it for your health, but you don't need to get it from your diet. Your body can make it. However, if you do eat more cholesterol, your body will make less. Now, cholesterol is carried around the body by these things called lipoproteins, LDL and HDL. And we'll see why they're good and bad shortly. So one of the reasons we've already discussed is in relationship to hydration, that when you're dehydrated, your body increases cholesterol production because it will stack it into the membrane to a greater degree to prevent dehydration. And so about 50% of your membrane is cholesterol rich already. Now, low density lipoproteins carry cholesterol from our livers to our cells. And so they are actually part of the work of burying into that cell membrane and supporting the cell in not losing water. Whereas your high density lipoproteins carry cholesterol from your cells to your liver for excretion. So the liver converts them, that excess cholesterol, into bile salts for you to get rid of. Now, in terms of cardiovascular disease, the LDL cholesterol is referred to as bad cholesterol because it's not being excreted, whereas excess cholesterol, your high density lipoproteins are characterized as being good cholesterol because they are being excreted. Therefore, you're getting rid of the excess cholesterol. Now, if you look at it in terms of the protective mechanism, then you can start to think slightly differently about cholesterol, because if we are stopping ourselves or lowering our cholesterol with a drug or with a food like one of these margarines, for example, that carry them, are we going to find ourselves in a position where we don't have enough cholesterol to protect our cell membranes, and we're in danger of damaging our cell membranes? So from a nutrition point of view, we know that cholesterol is absolutely vital to the body. And as I was saying, if you have cholesterol levels that are too high, maybe because you have eaten more, then the liver will make less. And so the high blood cholesterol can be a sign that there are other things going wrong. And obviously, dehydration would be one of those. And of course, what we know is from looking at water is that just dehydration can have an enormous effect on all of your body's systems, every single one of them. So if you think about cholesterol, 25% of it is used in your brain, in your cell membranes in your brain. You use cholesterol to make vitamin D. You also use cholesterol in the nervous system to make the myelin sheath that protects the nerves cells. And so if you can imagine, those nerve cells are a little bit like the electrical wiring in your house, they have to have that plastic around the metal to insulate the wire. And of course, when we start to have our myelin sheath eroded, we can be prone to conditions like MS. If the myelin sheath is eroding, it can have a big impact on our memory. So it's thinking about that, you know, if you're aging, getting good sources of cholesterol in that you can eat, and, you know, having the right ingredients that will enable your body to produce it if necessary. And of course, we know about the cell membrane already, and just, you know, thinking about all these cell membranes in your brain and your nervous system, absolutely enormous. So also your steroid hormones use a lot of cholesterol in their makeup, and there's a little diagram there showing how they're used, and they include your sex hormones and also your adrenal hormones. And so you've got a nice list there. They help regulate your metabolism, they help you make energy, they help you assimilate your minerals, support your brain, they help muscle and bone formation. They're really connected with your behavior, your emotional life, you know, your emotional behavior, your reproductive abilities as well, and reproductive cycles. And so adrenal hormones are very cholesterol hungry, and as steroid hormones, when you're stressed, you have a huge consumption of stress hormones, and that can lead to a condition known as adrenal exhaustion. And so people's adrenals literally wear out, and they find themselves finding it very difficult to manage their blood sugar when they've been under a huge, long, prolonged period of stress, and finding themselves unable to sleep as well, because, of course, as we've said before, your adrenal hormones help manage your sleep. So your immune cells also use cholesterol. If you have an infection, or what I would call inflammation, and what we find is that people who have good levels of cholesterol rarely get colds, and they do recover from illness very quickly, and the reverse is shown in studies of people who've got low cholesterol levels.
Your job is done. I'm off.
And so also just thinking about infants, cholesterol in human milk has close to 6 times the amount that adults consume from their food, because the baby's nervous system is forming, because babies are born with a sort of bag of loose wiring in the brain, and all of it needs the myelin sheaths forming around the nerve fibres for brain function, for nervous system, for eyesight. And mum also gives them in breast milk the enzyme so that they can absorb close to 100% of what is in the milk, which is absolutely incredible. So what do you think? Is lowering cholesterol safe?
But are we working on those NHS guidelines when we're saying what's safe, or are you those numbers you gave us at the beginning? Is that what we're working off, or
not particularly? No, because the conclusions that the nutrition industry have come to when looking at homocysteine, which is something that you produce or you metabolize from a lack of B vitamins, high homocysteine levels have a far greater impact on your possibility of having a cardiovascular event than high LDL cholesterol levels. And I'll come back to homocysteine in another evening.
It's linked to dementia as well, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so, you know, the long-term effects really of lowering cholesterol are not known, but what the studies which are related to statin uptake, you know, the actual drug studies show, is that lowering the cholesterol can have many more health impacts that can be really quite inconvenient, and that they don't really improve your chances, statins, of not dying of cardiovascular disease. So unfortunately, though, these phytosterols are added to margarine, fruit juices, yogurt drinks. Other food companies are exploring adding it. And I think one of the difficulties is that supermarket brands are, you know, jumped on board with margarines. And if you look at it very cynically, you could say it allowed the margarine companies to have a unique selling point for their brands over and above the supermarket brands. But I'll leave that one with you because I'm a bit of a cynic. So side effects of statins. It seems to have an effect on your magnesium and calcium metabolism. And so one of the things that a lot of people notice soon after taking it is that it does seem to weaken muscle tone. And I know my father-in-law, when he was alive, lamented the fact that he could not open a jar of jam anymore because he was taking the statins. And so if you can imagine, all that your heart is a huge, constantly working muscle. So if your magnesium and calcium electrolyte balance is damaged, then you are going to have the possibility of weakening the heart, just like any other muscle in your body. They also disrupt hormone production because, as we were saying, you need cholesterol for your steroid hormones. They can cause fatigue, and of course, because their effects are related to the reproductive hormones, they can reduce sex drive. They also put people at risk for brain issues, including dementia, mental health issues, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's disease. They can cause kidney and liver problems, and they can increase risk for diabetes and cancer. So it's weighing up, you know, whether.
And how many million people take them? It's massive, isn't it?
Oh, it is enormous. It is enormous. I'm not sure. It isn't one of those drugs that if GPs get a certain take up, they get a bonus for.
They're a penny each, like a penny each to supply. They're really cheap.
Sorry?
They're about a penny each, I think. They're really cheap.
Are they? Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a good big pharma.
Yeah. Well, they've been around a good while now, so I could imagine that, all the patents and goodness knows what costs.
So when people get put on statins, is it because of their blood pressure? Is that what normally happens?
Yes, or they've had a heart issue, or simply because they've had their cholesterol check at the GP with a sort of milestone age check or something similar, and they're offered statins.
Shelley, they wanted me to go on statins.
Did they?
Yeah, that's why I contacted Susie.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just an automatic thing, it appears to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it's a bit like cracking a sledgehammer with a nut, really.
Is there anything good about him?
Anything good? Not to my knowledge.
No.
Not from the perspective of long-term health.
Yeah. Because it's an easier fix, isn't it?
It is an easier fix, yes. Instead of
Susie, I don't know if I told you when they first suggested I go on statins, and I thought, oh my gosh, my cholesterol does look really bad, and oh, maybe I should, right? And I talked to the pharmacist, and because I really wasn't keen, and she just looked at me and she said, I don't think you should statins, and she gave me a load of information, obviously not the kind of as much as you're saying, but she clearly, the pharmacist, is not a fan either.
Right, you know? That's interesting.
So she knows it all from the pharmacology side as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to going back and telling her it's fine and I don't need the drugs.
It's that's really interesting. Yeah. She must have other experience that brought her to that conclusion.
She told me, she gave me some figures like, you know, you could start taking statins and, you know, they wouldn't in 10 years time, they won't have helped you, or, you know, something about my chance of having a cardiac event, you know, that sort of, she really didn't think it was a good thing to do. She was reasonably young. I'd say she's in her, I don't know, 30s maybe, not 40, if that makes maybe any difference to how they think. I don't know.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. No. Good to meet an enlightened person in
Big Pharma.
Yeah, in Big Pharma. And I think possibly sometimes pharmacists can be more enlightened in my experience, because they've had to really study the drugs in great detail rather than just write a prescription for them. Right. So switching over, unless you've got any more questions about statins.
Oh.
No, sorry. Cholesterol even.
I mean, is the cholesterol you put into your body exactly the same as the stuff you make yourself?
Well, cholesterol is a hard, waxy fat. Yes. Yeah. So say, for example, egg yolks are a good source of cholesterol. That, you know, in fact, they did a study with infants where, I mean, a little bit early, but they started to feed egg yolk to infants from 4 months. And in the group that were fed the egg yolk, as opposed to not, again, they noticed, I mean, I don't know how they measure these things in infants, but they noticed things, you know, better cognition, better brain developments, more brain development by the age of 6 months. I mean, that is early weaning, really, because 6 months is better to wait till. But yeah. And so it's just a sign that, you know, your cholesterol, good quality cholesterol, is useful for your brain, not just in your youth, but also in latter years. And I've forgotten. No, I haven't. It's Natasha Campbell McBride, the doctor who wrote the book Gut and Psychology Syndrome, talks about egg yolk being a good source.
So we should be looking to eat some cholesterol then, but say you go to the doctor and, well, like Teresa, and they say, oh, your cholesterol's too high, we'll give you some statins, and you say, no, I don't want statins, I would like to adjust my diet accordingly. So I mean, water is, as we've discussed, the sort of root of everything, isn't it? So by increasing the water, you could in effect lower your cholesterol.
Yes, if it's that consistency, because if you think about external stress, we know that dehydrates. So you're going to start stacking cholesterol in the cell membrane. It's the LDL cholesterol that's traveling from the liver to the cells.
Well, that's like the accountants you mentioned, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And then if you think about your internal stress that occurs when you're dry because you're not drinking any water, then you're going to be doing exactly the same. So it's, have you got internal stress only? Have you got internal and external stress? Then you're likely to get a much bigger increase in the cholesterol, that's the LDL cholesterol.
So rather than saying, as a couple of my friends have, who are both built like stick insects, so it's not like, oh, fat people are carrying a lot of cholesterol. You know, they immediately sort of said, oh, I mustn't eat cream and cheese, and I must cut out as much dairy as possible. Really, you could look at it a different way and think, well, actually, that's not causing it, that it's the internal and the external stress, and let's try and look at that instead. But it's an automatic thing, isn't it? When you go and you're discovered to have high cholesterol, well, you've got to cut out fats, you've got to cut out fats. And the message that you're giving us, Susie, is that's incorrect.
Yeah, because it's looking at what the LDL cholesterol actually is. And what it's doing, what its role in the body is.
So when, you know, when people have clogged up arteries and they, you know, and it's all, it's just full of cholesterol, and that's because it's been misplaced, or why has the body decided to clog itself up with its own?
Yes, good question. So where you've got excess cholesterol building up in the arteries, and that could be to the brain or the heart, either. Generally speaking, there is something that is causing inflammation in the arteries in the first place. And classic for heart is sugar. And so when you get that eroding and, you know, undermining of the cell membranes in the arteries, your body will try and patch it up with calcium and cholesterol. So that's the layer that's contributing to the plaques building up. Then you've got a situation where, and it's partly because you'll also have misplaced calcium kicking around, but you've got also misplaced calcium, which can bind up with excess, I say excess, but cholesterol in the gallbladder, and that will form gallstones. You can have, let's see, they're the main two clogging up that involve cholesterol. Plenty that involve calcium.
Susie, then what you're saying is, if through your sugar consumption you've damaged the arteries in your heart or brain to the extent that your body needs to clog up or cover the damage with cholesterol, that's what you're saying. Is it actually doesn't matter whether you're getting the cholesterol from butter, or whether your body's just making it to patch. Is that right?
Yes, you're right. In a way, it doesn't really matter whether it's making it or whether it's getting it from your diet. It's what else you're doing that is contributing to it clogging up where it shouldn't be.
So does that mean that if you have an amazing diet, but you have a lot of sugar, and you don't consume much cholesterol, your body's going to produce enough cholesterol to clog up your arteries anyway if you've inflamed them with sugar?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. The plaques will still form because they're coating over an area that's damaged.
So the issue is sugar, not.
Can if you take the sugar away, will the cholesterol go away, or is it always there then?
No, you can improve the situation, but yeah, for sure. I don't know if I've already shown a slide that's actually in the book called The China Study by T. Colin Campbell, which shows a narrowed, twisted artery, and it's narrowed because of the cholesterol plaque, after 36 months on a plant diet.
No, I don't think you showed us that.
Which, of course, he also recommends that you don't consume huggins of sugar.
Interesting. Yeah, I had a friend, still have the same friends, but quite a few years ago now, she had gallstones, and they put her on a fat-free diet. She couldn't have any oil, nothing. I mean, she lost a vast amount of weight. Not that she was obese at all, but you could see where it had gone after a few months. Simply because she was told no olive oil, no nothing. I can't remember. I mean, she got over her gallstones, and I don't think she had surgery. But really, that probably wasn't the best diet, was it?
No, that's right. It's a really interesting one because having seen, some cases with gallstones, again, they very often occur when people are under the most enormous stress. And if they're tiny, and of course the reason that you can't do the fats is because the gallbladder is blocked. And now, if they're tiny, people can have them flipped out through the duct with keyhole work. But if they are, or tubed down, I believe, but if they're large, then very often they will suggest that they remove the gallbladder. And it's looking at, again, when you're very, very stressed and you're producing a lot of cholesterol, if you are really internally dehydrated and externally dehydrated from the stress, then you're going to be much more prone to gallstones. It makes so much sense. And if you change the environment, you'll change what the body is doing with the ingredients that it's trying to expel. Oh, hello, little fella.
Sorry. Cuddle, so he's on
very sweet. Is that okay?
Interesting. Well, we can see that slide later then of the twisted cholesterol ridden.
Yes. No, it's funny. I thought I'd put that one up. I really must. I'll dig that one out because it is a good one. Right. So, gut flora live with us in a sort of symbiotic relationship. And the ideal is that it's of mutual benefit to both of us, like birds and berries, really, that once the bird's eaten the berry, the seeds actually pass through and the bird will plant them somewhere. And in fact, sometimes the seeds will be sort of get a bit of germination help from actually passing through the gut of the bird, because it starts to break down the protective layer around the seed. And so we're looking for that kind of relationship with our gut flora, rather than any sort of parasitic relationship like mistletoe with a tree, where mistletoe because of the way it sort of gets itself etched into the bark of the tree, will convince the tree that it is producing foliage, and the tree will give it nourishment, sometimes at the detriment of itself. And so if we are feeding our good gut flora, they will nurture us back. Whereas when we're feeding the parasitic gut flora, they can cause us to feel really quite unwell. And so just looking at the different kinds of bacteria, now I've listed the sort of classes, but you've probably seen a lot of the essential ones before, and possibly some of the opportunistic ones, which are our parasitic ones, before as well. But the transitional ones are what pass through really from our food and drink. And when the gut has plenty of beneficial bacteria, then these microbes that you find, in your food and your drinks will pass through without harm. Whereas if your beneficial bacteria community is low, then that group could possibly cause infection. So this is why, some people will go out to a restaurant and they'll perhaps have a meal, and all of them will maybe even have the same meal, and say 2 of them will get home and they spend the night in the bathroom being poorly, and everybody else is fine. And it's probably most likely because the microbes was in all of the food, but the people with poor quality gut flora couldn't handle those microbes. So if we just take a bit of a closer look at the digestive system, and I'd like to try and put this in perspective of everything that we've been speaking about over the last few weeks, because you've got your tongue and your mouth producing, salivary glands producing the saliva that are going to help you start to digest starch. And of course, you're pouring water onto your food, and then into the esophagus, down to the stomach in 8 seconds, and you've got that lovely watery fluid that is moving your food from your mouth to your stomach in 8 seconds. And then you've got the sphincters, which are the rings of muscle at the top of your stomach and the bottom of your stomach. So you've got the esophageal sphincter at the top, pyloric sphincter at the bottom. And as the esophageal sphincter opens and, as you swallow and brings the food into your stomach, it will then stay there for 2.5 to 4 hours, where your body is pouring more water, or your stomach is pouring more water onto your food with acid products that are going to help break down, do the large part of breaking down your food. And after about 2.5 hours, the food starts to leave your stomach, come into the small intestine, where it's neutralized with bile from the liver and with pancreatic juices. Sorry, you can't see the pancreas, from the pancreas, and they're alkaline. So the stomach goes down to a pH of about 2, which is a really strong acid, And we've probably already said it's producing these amazing bicarbonates that are going to keep the lining protected from the acid, even while you're producing acid that is helping you to digest the food. And so then down through the small intestine, and you're absorbing, your peptides from proteins and your starches from carbohydrates, all, continuing for the absorption to carry on. And your fats have been emulsified by bile, and are being carried by the lymphatic system for digestion. So your gallbladder, of course, has a huge role and needs a lot of water, as does your liver every day, to produce the bile, and it's concentrated in your gallbladder, so that it's at a concentration which is going to help you to emulsify those fats correctly. And then as it comes into your large intestine, as we've said before, that's where you absorb any excess water from, back from your food, so that, what's leaving is wrung out, and you've absorbed water back into your body for use again elsewhere. And so it's also thinking about not just your hydration, but the pH that has to be right, because that pH also has to be right for all of your tiny little gut flora that are in your digestive system right the way through that tubing. And that the little goblet cells in there have the right amount of essential fatty acids to be able to produce the fluids that keep everything moving through. So if we have a look in depth at the small intestine, have you all heard of the little villi in your small intestine? They're like sort of finger-like projections into the small intestine, and there are, well, countless of them. So that particularly, you find a lot of gut flora in the small intestine, and each of these little villi will be coated in gut flora in a 3D perspective. And what it is that those gut flora are like the grass or the turf that are protecting the soil, which is the villi. Can you get a picture of that? And those gut flora are producing, now they're not exactly antibiotic or antifungal, but they are antibiotic and antifungal-like substances like interferon, lysosine, surfactants, and they engage the immune system really to respond to any of these microbes that could come in from your food or your drink, as we were saying. They are a huge natural barrier for you and a huge part of your immunity. Now they make the pH of the gut wall, near the gut wall, at about an acid level. It's quite different from the stomach, a bit nearer to neutral, 4 to 5. So the ideal is that that is too acidic for your bad flora, which prefer an alkaline environment. So if you've got an alkaline environment in the gut, which would tend to be caused by too much, things like too much sugar coming into the body, and your enterocytes, or your tiny little gut cells, are born here down in the crypts of the small intestine. And if you have a look at a picture of the small intestine on Google with all the little villi, you'll see they're much, much closer together than this. And what happens is that the little gut cells migrate up to the top of each of the villi, and they shed off and then you birth new baby ones down here, and they develop and develop as they get to the top of the belly, and then they shed off. And there's a huge life cycle there, and masses of goblet cells. And what these little finger-like projections do is they help provide a massive absorption site for all of your nutrients that you take in through your diet, your minerals, your vitamins, your proteins, etc., etc. And so if your good gut flora can't flourish because there isn't a great environment in the gut, then the walls of your city, if you like, are not well protected. And you can find then that the gut wall is open to invasion by fungus because you haven't got the gut flora to produce these antifungal substances that will stop that taking place. And that means that those highly opportunistic and parasitic flora can take a hold. And often, with inflammatory bowel disease, these pathogenic bacteria are found not only in the mucosa, not only in the environment around, but also in the internal mucosa, actually in the cells of your gut. And that's when you start to feel extremely poorly because those pathogens have got into the gut wall.
Mm.
And so thinking about that symbiotic relationship again, what's surprising is that your gut epithelium, or the gut cells, get 60 to 70% of their energy from the activity of the bacteria. So your good gut flora actually feed the inside of your gut. They should be there to nurture the inside of your gut. And they nourish that cell lining. So it's their job to convert the food into substances that can nourish the gut wall. Now, if we have poor gut flora status, that adds to the gut wall damage, and then we don't digest our food as easily or as well, and we certainly don't absorb as much as we should be absorbing.
This is what causes bloating and stuff.
Yes, it can cause bloating. Yes, because the pathogenic bacteria will tend to produce substances that do cause a lot of wind and bloating. And particularly sugary foods will cause that fermentation, if you like. It's almost like you're fermenting inside.
Yeah. I think sometimes when people that are fermenting, you can see it in their faces, can't you? Because they're like, you can see it.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Oh, you can definitely see it in the skin.
How does it look?
I would say pasty and unhealthy, but very often very deep shadows under the eyes. The skin is sort of dry and unnourished. What else would you see? Tendency to more skin irritation, rashes and so on. Eczema and well, certainly more of your fungal things. Eczema can be contributed to, but things like ringworm, obviously athlete's foot, and of course internally things like thrush can thrive. Itchy skin.
A lot of old people get itchy skin, don't they?
They do.
They complain
Yes.
about itchy skin. Yeah.
It's a sign that the liver is trying to dump heat out through the skin, mainly because the body's quite dry and inflamed. And so dietary fibre. Now, there are some things really that without the gut flora, you don't do very well digesting. So this can be a sign that, we need dietary fibre because it digests very slowly. And from that perspective, it helps lower blood cholesterol levels. It also helps remedy constipation, particularly if it's nice swollen fibre. It helps your bile metabolism, helps with good bile flow, helps prevent bowel cancer. And certainly they do know, even if you look at people with high meat intake, that if they have a good intake of fruit and vegetables alongside, they are much less likely to get bowel cancer. Your dietary fibre, again, because of the speed of digestion, helps slow the rate at which glucose enters the bloodstream, so it improves your glucose tolerance. And it's this amazing food for your good bacteria, if you have plenty of them. So what they do with that fibre is they munch their way through it and produce food for the gut wall and the body from it. They help, the Chinese call brown rice, for example, the food of the colon. And the reason for that is the amount of fibre in it, because the fibre is good at soaking up toxins from the gut and carrying them out of the body. And this is the gut flora get the fibre into a state whereby it can absorb toxins from your gut and carry them out of the body. So it also helps with water and your electrolyte metabolism, your electrolytes being your four main minerals, your sodium, potassium, calcium and magnesium. And so good flora help fibre, help you manage the metabolism of water and electrolytes in terms of fibre. And they also, you can use fibre to recycle your bile acids, which we do anyway, and cholesterol if needed. So if you it had gone on a route to excretion and you need it back, so the fibre will help you bring it back. So if you've got a good gut flora profile, if your good gut flora profile is damaged and imbalanced, that dietary fibre can become a problem because it's not being handled by it. So firstly, you create an ideal habitat for your pathogenic bacteria or your parasitic bacteria, which means that you have aggravated inflammation in the gut wall. And that leads you to a position where very often people will be advised by a physician, don't eat anything with fibre in it. Eat white bread, eat white rice, do not touch anything, don't lower your intake of vegetables because you simply cannot digest them.
Yeah, that's the diet for colitis, is it ulcerative colitis?
Yeah.
Crohn. I think my neighbour got Crohn's. She's eating rubbish.
Yes, it's a classic prescription, if you like, for diet, if there's some kind of gut inflammation.
Yeah.
And yet it's really reinforcing the inflammatory situation. And of course, it will break down into sugar so quickly, all of those white foods, that it will reinforce the inflammation as well. So what would be lovely to eat? Well, I don't know if you recognise the vegetable in the middle.
Jerusalem artichoke, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you like them?
Yeah, I bought some, are they tubers or something? Do you remember? I bought them, Teresa, when we had a day out in Peterborough.
Oh, really?
I bought them in the Waitrose near the station for John's birthday because.
Oh, what a birthday treat!
And that must be 4 or 5 years ago. Can we get rid of them in the garden? No. Once you've got them, you've got them. They're part of the sunflower family, aren't they?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Sorry, Jane.
A very earthy, an earthy taste. It's I've got some artichoke puree in the freezer as we speak.
Lovely. Yeah.
And I finished the artichoke soup I had. Charlotte doesn't call them artichokes.
Yeah.
She calls them something else.
Yes.
Have anything to do with wind?
Yes.
Yeah, they have a huge reputation for inducing wind. But I have to tell you that it is a positive kind of wind, because they are probably the supreme food for your gut flora.
Really?
Yes.
Gosh,
I'm away to the garden tomorrow to find some.
And I actually dug some up, funnily enough, at the weekend. We've dug some up each weekend, and Andy made a Raymond Blanc Jerusalem artichoke mousse, which was absolutely amazing, very delicate. And then I made this week, I roasted them with red pepper and did a artichoke dip, and that was absolutely gorgeous. So I'll have to send that recipe.
Jane, when we get growing them, never mind buying them in the shops.
That was the reason to grow. Can't get rid of them.
Yes, they are easy. Yeah. Stick them in the ground and
Yeah. Got them forever. Yeah.
Can you stick one in that you buy? Can you stick? Do you have to buy them in a special way?
Like potatoes, isn't it?
Just well, I bought them in March, and stuck them in the ground, and soon after.
Okay. Oh, I'll have to get that.
They are really.
Them and go to the theatre, you know. Anyway.
I mean, they're ideal for the current situation because you're not seeing anybody, so just build up your good gut flora. But they are very wind inducing. So then onion family, onions, garlic, shallots, anything like that, even your little spring onions to a degree, although you'd have to eat a lot more, of course. Leeks are fabulous as well, absolutely fabulous. Radish, really good. And of course radish grow quite easily as well. And then sorry,
just go through what prebiotic means.
Yes, prebiotics are things like your oligosaccharides, and they feed, the prebiotics feed your probiotics, if you like.
Because there's a lot of, you should be taking prebiotics rather than probiotics, and I don't know enough about it at all, so
Personally, having several years ago, when oligosaccharides sort of supplements came out, I think they had quite a bit of difficulty with them at first, especially of quantity, because they did cause some people quite a lot of wind and discomfort.
Susie, sorry, what's an oligosaccharide?
It's one of the prebiotic sugars.
Right.
families. So I think it's one of those things where personally I prefer to advise people to get it from their diet, because that way you're feeding your gut flora something that they can really recognize as having, they have to do a bit of work with it, but they're not being given them the oligosaccharides and so on, like here you are, here it is, that's what you need. It's in a natural form. It just makes so much more sense to me to do that.
So it's all like root vegetables, isn't it?
It is, all your root veggies, and of course they are carbohydrate high compared to things like your allium family and so on, your onion family. And so from that perspective, have a sort of modest amount, but they're all lovely. Parsnip, beetroot, carrot, sweet potato,
all sweet.
Yam in the summer perhaps.
Is that a yam there on the right? It
is a yam, yeah. So certainly I personally wouldn't recommend too many of them in the winter, but if you come across them in the summer.
Girls, at the weekend I made a really lovely Hugh Fearnley Whittingstall parsnip and ginger soup.
Oh, did you?
I kept it quite thick. At the end of it, he tells you to put milk in, but I didn't bother putting the milk in, but it was really lovely.
Yeah.
I probably made it more thick than you would ever imagine it should be, but it tasted very good.
Oh, your soups sound like mine, Teresa. My husband always says, this isn't a soup. You can stand your spoon up in it.
I know. Well, I hate water. I hate a bowl of watery stuff.
Oh, me too. Just drops back in the bowl. Yeah. So then you've got fruit. These particular fruits are rich in prebiotic sugars, and unfortunately, some of them are tropical. But basically, your fruit family generally contain prebiotic sugars. But apples are a lovely one, and I've put actually a plate with green apples and one red apple sitting on top, because it's worth thinking about the fact that green apples generally are less high in sugar, so they are a better option than your red apples, which are bred now for kind of sweetness. Your citrus family are low in sugar. Your berry family are lower in sugar. Bananas, of course, are quite sweet. I always suggest share a banana if you can, or keep half in the fridge for the next day.
Or have a little one.
Or have a little one, yeah.
Those ones they sell for school lunch boxes. What is that? Sorry, Susie, that previous slide was they black currants? Were they black currants you had in there?
Yes, they were black currants. Yes, sorry, I only mentioned berries. But yes, black currants are the best of the berries. And again, it's that tartiness as well that the black currants have. So then looking at soluble and insoluble fibre in vegetables. Soluble fibre, so there's two that are rich in soluble fibre. Your Brussels sprouts, again, very wind inducing, so you can understand why they're good for your good bacteria, and also asparagus. Soluble fibre sort of is a bit like thinking about your linseeds and the gel that comes out of your linseeds for your linseed tea, in that they dissolve in water, they form a gel, and that is easily digested by the good bacteria, so it's a lovely food for them. Insoluble fibre, such as you find in cabbage and celery, is something that helps control the transit time, the pace that everything passes through the gut. And ideally, particularly when it's vegetables, it doesn't slow it down, but it will pass through at a measured pace so that your absorption can take place. And so, more reasons why your veggies are so important. And then you've got things like fermented foods. such as your sauerkraut and your kimchi, things like kombucha, which, you know, if you don't have any sort of caffeine intolerance, you'd probably manage okay.
Fermented foods, I just don't understand at all.
I don't understand.
Right.
Because I just don't understand what to do with them.
Oh, right. What to put them with and things.
Well, and why? I know they're it's talked about a lot now, but I don't like kimchi. Well, I don't like kimchi. It's very acquired taste, isn't it? Sauerkraut and this. So why are we doing it? Is it for the prebiotic effect, or?
They're sort of more of a natural probiotic, really.
Right.
But yes, they also, because they're fermented in a beneficial way, they have enzymes and so on that will support your digestion and your good gut flora and help colonize good gut flora.
So how do we start to? How would you start to introduce something like this?
Yeah.
I mean, what is the easiest one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, something like, let's say you were having a snack and you had an oat cake with a hummus layer, then you could pop some sauerkraut on top of that, for example.
And you'd buy this sauerkraut, you wouldn't make it.
You have to be very careful if you buy it, but yes, it's so readily available now. It's usually quite easy to buy. But make sure it is raw and live. Right. Because some of them have been heat treated. So it must be one that is still has the capability to, you know, continue fermenting. Then you just keep it in the fridge. And what I suggest to people is have a tablespoonful on top of your salad. If you're having a stew, put it alongside a stew.
Yeah. I've not so much sauerkraut, but somebody who used to live in Germany, whenever she served a stew, she would always serve some sort of a pickle with it, which is not, you know, or sauerkraut. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, they're very into it, aren't they, over there? They do.
Not dissimilar, and you know, pickling, the way it used to be done, would also be supportive for fermentation, because of course now you can more readily get vinegars that have the mother still in them, particularly cider apple vinegar. And using a bit of that in your dressing means that you're introducing some good products, you know, that are going to support good flora onto your salad. But then, for example, if when they used to pickle cabbage and things, they would let it do the sort of resting in the sea salt and so on, and then drain off the excess liquid and pickle that in a vinegar that has the mother. So you've got two beneficial things going on there.
Well, girls, I have three Kilner jars of fermenting sprouts here. If you want me to post them. Mary bought, you know, and was intending to give them as Christmas presents.
And I did, under instruction, he's left here, he did ask me to let the gas off them, which I did yesterday. And there was a little hiss came out of a couple of them. And I did give them a quick smell, and I thought, no, sprouts I will eat, but I wouldn't ever choose them. And they just don't smell very nice at all.
Wow.
But he's desperate that I don't throw them out, that we keep going with the experiment. So Watch this space.
Interesting.
It'll sprout.
Susie, what's the middle photograph then that you, with that?
Yes.
Yes, that one's a kombucha.
Kombucha, right.
What is that, Susie?
It's the Scooby in it drinks black tea, and sweetened black tea, and it digests the sugar and the caffeine, and you're left with a drink like, I mean, one thing I haven't put on here is kefir, which is another one.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so you can get kefir that's obviously originally fermented raw milk, but now you can get kefir ferments that you can use with things like lemon water, and make a sort of fruit kefir, which is very pleasant, and it becomes effervescent because of the fermentation. Really very nice to drink.
That might be an easier option.
Oh, sorry. What are the other two on the left hand side?
They're both a form of kimchi.
Kimchi.
Yeah. Yeah, my last fermentation was red cabbage, which I'm just starting to eat now. So
I love red cabbage.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, mix that one with carrot. So a couple of things against the bad bacteria. Oregano has a good reputation for helping to create an environment that bad bacteria don't want to flourish in.
It's quite potent. You've got to be careful, haven't you? It's very strong.
You have. So people can get oregano oil, but what I'm suggesting is, do use it in your cooking. It's a lovely herb to use. And
grows like mad, doesn't it?
It does. Yes, it's very prolific. And also horseradish. It's good against bad bacteria.
I've got some of that in my garden, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah, somebody gave me it. It really spreads. It's a bit like the artichokes, I suppose. It just really you have to put it in. It's a bit like mint. You've got to really watch it. It spreads everywhere.
Do you know, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm not sure I've put the wrong thing on there. It's meant to be horsetail.
Horsetail.
Horsetail. Oh right.
Wrong herb. Sorry. But thinking about it, I would be very surprised if horseradish wasn't a nice one to bring in, because it's a radish for your good bacteria. Sorry about that. God, yeah, what I'm thinking. Horsetail. Yeah. Which is also actually beneficial for women with regard to your calcium metabolism.
The horsetail.
Yes, rich in silica. So it's helpful for bone formation because it's so high in silica. Which I might not have mentioned had I started gabbing about the wrong thing. So why, are good gut flora so lovely? Well, we've already looked at the digestive system and how fabulous and supportive they are. But what is little known is that you do not make all of the serotonin that you use, which you make for serenity, feel good, good mood. You don't make all of it in the brain. About 80% of it, sometimes more, you make in the gut. Your gut flora make your serotonin. But you need the strong gut flora in community in order for that to take place. And serotonin naturally helps mood, which we know, but it also helps you sleep well.
We'll need that.
Your gut flora also helps synthesize some of your B vitamins, and B12 is one of them. And also, we've already mentioned about immunity in terms of gut flora. So there are many, many more reasons associated with mood and behaviour and emotions, but they're just a few reasons that can be really significant.
Yeah. Good.
Interesting.
Very interesting. It really is. Yeah.
You'll never look at a Jerusalem artichoke the same way now, will you?
Sorry, go on.
I've always been disappointed. I've only done them a few times. I've obviously not cooked them right because they weren't that tasty. I think I roasted them.
Oh, right. And you didn't find them?
Good roasted.
I don't particularly like them, but
yeah,
maybe I didn't. I'll have something to go with them.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I would recommend. Yeah, try them 20 times.
Yeah. So how often should we be eating some sort of fermented food, Susie? Every day?
Well, maybe 2-3 times a week is getting the variety, like everything else, so that if you, for example, if you're having radishes on your salad and you're having a cider apple olive oil dressing, then you've already brought in something that is going to support your gut flora. If the next day you're not having those, you could put your sauerkraut with the salad instead. When you've got in another meal, ringing the changes between maybe some roast parsnips, some steamed mashed sweet potato, alternating, so that with each type of fibre you'll feed a different kind of gut flora. And there are so many of them. And what's really interesting after the menopause, and I thought I'd saved this comparison chart, but I lost it. I sound like a right nerd now, but it just showed how your gut flora change after the menopause.
Really?
Yes. And so, it's getting that variety in, so that you're feeding a huge variety of them, because they all have a different role to play.
Very interesting. I do buy radishes pretty much every time I buy salad. I buy radishes to go with it, just because I like it. Celery.
Oh, radishes are ever so good for you. I'm trying to think of the other benefit, right?
And as you say, they're really easy to grow. You could just, I'll put some more in next year. I did grow a row, just one row, but you could. They're the sort of thing, a bit like rocket and salad leaves. You can keep planting them at 3 weekly intervals and have a harvest. Yeah,
another crop. Yeah. Any questions or thoughts or?
Well, when I had those Brussels sprouts and I had too many, that wasn't just the wind; it was the bloating with the Brussels sprouts. I was like, as I said to you before, I looked like I was having twins. I was huge. Presumably, my gut flora wasn't working well with the Brussels sprouts.
Well, that's possible. That's possible, or it could have just been the quantity.
It was a lot. But it could only be because I haven't had them for so long, and it was obviously the new ingredient.
I've got a Brussels sprout soup. Have I sent out a Brussels sprout soup?
Nope.
It is really lovely. I'll send that, and the Jerusalem artichoke recipe, that roast mash one, for a dip. and I'll think of a couple of other things that relate to gut flora.
Brilliant.
Yeah, lovely.
Good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could get a old bowl with a Brussels sprout soup, I think.
It's not just Brussels.
I did buy the sprouts. And, yeah, John would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And oh, did you say you've got a good recipe for a Jerusalem artichoke soup, Teresa?
I did. I think it was just Delia Smith. It was way before Christmas, and I just made it the once because I had a lot of Jerusalem artichokes and I didn't know what to do with them. So yeah, I can't even remember what I did with it, but I think it was something. It was very basic. I think it was just Delia. But yeah, it was fine. It was nice, and I made so much. I had frozen them. To be honest with you, maybe there's something wrong with me. I didn't find it that it made me that gassy.
Oh, right.
Is that weird?
Yeah. Maybe your gut flora are very efficient.
I doubt it. That's interesting. I have to try this again. I'll have to. Poor old John. I'll have to try it again. Yeah.
If you both have it, you'll be more forgiving.
Oh dear. My daughter would. It's my next door neighbour had grown them, you see, and she gave me a lot, and I gave my daughter some, and she doesn't want them again. I explained to her how good they are for her, and I'll let her try your recipes. She might change her mind.
You never know.
Can't hear you, Shelley.
Oh, Shelley, your volume's gone.
No. No, that's strange.
That's strange.
No.
We can't hear you.
No.
Oh, it's not switched off either.
How very odd.
Can you put it in the chat box?
You muted yourself, Shell, or by anything? No.
Do you want to hop out and hop in again?
Shell, but we know.
Oh, how frustrating. It's the chat box at the bottom. It's the the middle.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there you go. You're back.
Have you come back?
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I don't know why I'm not with you, but hang on. Am I back in now?
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Hi. I don't know what happened. I was just saying, Teresa, did you actually peel all those artichokes then?
Yes.
That's a real pain, isn't it? They're really difficult, I think.
Yeah, because they're so knobbly.
Yeah.
I must admit, I never do. I just scrub mine.
Scrub them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andy peeled them for the mousse because it was very delicate.
Yeah.
But, funnily enough, this is really interesting because have you heard of mycorrhiza?
No.
They are the good flora in our soils.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. So if a soil is of good quality, it will have these mycorrhiza bacteria in it that feed the roots of the plants and the trees that grow in it. And equally, those plants that grow in that soil will then nourish us in turn. So, you know, they say that one way of having good gut flora is not cleaning your vegetables too efficiently if they've been grown organically. Because we get some benefit from the soil itself.
Yeah. Yes, I just scrub my carrots if they're organic, you know. and they're not too old, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, years ago when we were kids, you would just go and get a carrot out of the garden and give it a good wipe and eat it.
You would. And radishes, everything. We just pick them away.
Yeah. But my sister-in-law, John's twin's wife, she's just obsessed with cleanliness and getting. She's very allergic to lots of stuff. But you know, everything's got to be really clear. And I think, you know, well, yeah, I'm sure that's why they get ill such a lot. And I'm sure that's why she's got such a lot wrong with her, because they've no immunity. She's never allowed herself to build
well, listen, I saw E. coli on that list of Susie's, and my friend Beryl has had E. coli and they haven't been able to get rid of it. And she ended up having a bladder scan this week, and they think she's too clean.
Yeah.
Right.
Whoa, that's brilliant news.
She's in her 70s now, and she religiously uses soap and water down there, and they think she's actually damaged the bladder wall because of the amount of soap she's been using. You know, yeah, and they only use hot water, you know, sort of warm water on your bits, because you can overdo it and you're just wiping out all the sort of the good bacteria. And she's now got lesions on her bladder that are, I think, because she's been too clean.
Yeah.
So, there you go. So
back to a shower once a month then. Yeah.
They do say, don't they, that your house shouldn't be too clean, because children need a certain amount of bacteria, don't they, to build up, you know, immunities.
They do. Yeah.
So that's my excuse anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's been an excellent session, Susie. Really, really good. I can't wait to tell John about Jerusalem artichokes. It'll be so delightful. We'll be getting that puree out the freezer and making some soup tomorrow, I'm sure.
What? You'll not mind them being very sociable in your garden now?
No.
In fact, you could maybe send a few tubers round.
Yeah, definitely, because they are difficult to get rid of. Yeah. They go so deep. They really go deep. Yeah.
Yes, I think I'm probably going to be surprised year after year now.
Yeah.
Lovely. But,
well, thanks, Susie. It's really interesting.
Yeah, food for thought.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Tomorrow I'll see you at 9:30, and will you have to send me a new link, won't you, because it was a different time?
Yes, let me see. Now, I think that link that you've got for 9:30. Oh, hang on, was that a new one? I'll check and send you a message.
I had to get a new link for that, and then we changed it to the. Yeah, so just let me know which one to use.
I will, yes. Nice. A bit mind-boggling, isn't it? Yeah. That's lovely. Thank you.
Oh,
I'll look forward to seeing you all in the next couple of days.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Susie.
Lovely, Susie. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, girls.
Bye.
Speak to you soon. Yeah. Bye.